Hey, Father Michael here. A few years ago, I was doing some volunteer work with someone who had a really fine reputation locally for uh, being involved in some very impactful ministries um, in the city. And she had received a lot of accolades and even some awards for her service to the poor. And to be fair, you know, she was a good person. She did a lot of really good things, even though, like all of us, she had some flaws. She had a tendency to be a little judgmental, a tendency to insert herself into other people's situations, even when they didn't want or need her involvement. But one day we are in the clothing bank that she started, sorting clothes and household items and all of that. And someone came into the building asking for assistance. And so Sarah, that's not her real name, that's what I'm going to call her. Sarah was gracious enough to welcome the woman in and figure out what it was that she needed. And so we put together some stuff, some bags of household furniture and dishes and clothing for her and her kids and all of that. And the woman was black. And as she was getting in her car and driving away, Sarah turned to me, kind of shaking her head, and she said, "I just don't know how some of these people get themselves in these situations. They're clearly not like us." She kind of gave me a conspiratorial look over her glasses, as if, because that was my prompt to agree with her, I guess. But I didn't agree with her. I didn't know what to respond exactly. So I said, "Well, yeah, you're right. She's not like us. And isn't that awesome?" Sarah didn't know what to do with that. And so she just turned away. She didn't respond, and she just walked away, walked back in the building, apparently unwilling or unable to engage in my observation or even stop and question her own underlying racism. Maybe I am just weird. Okay, I am just weird because I have never had an issue with people who are different from myself. I have always, since I was a young man, surrounded myself with people who are very different from myself. In 1979, for example, as a very young man, I found myself in a curious situation because I had friends who were Iranian. And that was the year, those of you who are old enough to remember, that was the year of the Iranian hostage crisis that went on for 2 full years. And I remember many occasions walking around with my Iranian friends, getting all kinds of evil, judgmental stares from the normal Americans who were all about hating on the Iranians as being theocratic, violent fanatics of some kind. Over the years, I have had many friends with whom I didn't agree on much of anything, but we were still friends. I've had atheist friends and agnostic friends. I'm still very solicitous of people who are on that page, even now working in treatment. when people are trying to impose the idea that they have to find God to recover. I stand with the atheists and the agnostics. I've had Buddhist friends and Jewish friends and Muslim friends and liberal friends and conservative friends and anarchist friends and all of that. But that started in an earlier time in the history of this country, in a more intelligent time, I would say, when we could actually engage with people with whom we disagreed in order to understand them, in order to get a handle on why they believed the way they did. And since the rise of white nationalism, which has really blossomed since 2016, rather, it seems like those days of listening to other people are pretty much gone. Another story. I used to be a gym fanatic. It was probably an addictive behavior because I was there 7 days a week throughout the 1980s and into the 90s, every day of the week. And there were other gym fanatics there as well. And so there was a core group of us, probably 9 or 10 of us, who were always there at the same time of day, every single day, 7 days a week. Different races, different ages, different backgrounds, different sexual preferences, and all of that. But none of it mattered because, we were gym rats and we spotted each other on the benches and we encouraged and joked and harassed each other and the whole thing. One day, though, a young Hispanic man who was also working out quite often started to engage with our middle school banter and our humor. And he clearly wanted to be included in the camaraderie that we all shared. And one of my black friends, an older man, I think around 70 at the time, pulled me aside later in the locker room and he said to me, "What's up with that Mexican guy? Doesn't he have any of his own friends?" And I was taken aback. And I don't remember exactly what I said, but it was something like, well, I don't mind at all. He's funny and he just wants to be part of the group. I don't have a problem with that. To which he replied, "Well, those people are ruining our neighborhoods. We never had crime in my area until those people moved in. They're just not like us." I was so stunned by that remark. I know I said, "Well, to be fair, that is exactly what white people said when you people moved into our neighborhood. So maybe we're all mistaken about that. Maybe we all need to take a step back and think about our attitudes." Why do we do this? Why do we do this? Why are we always comparing ourselves to those people and always coming out on top? Because we always come to the conclusion then that we are somehow better. We are better educated, we're more intelligent, we are better neighbors, we mow our lawn more appropriately, we have better fashion sense, we're more responsible with our jobs and our careers, we're more highly favored by God, perhaps, the God that we have created in our own image. How are we going to say that God favors us over other groups of people? St. Paul clearly says in Romans chapter 2, verse 11, God does not have any damn favorites. So what are we doing? If we say that we want to welcome everyone, that we, especially those of us in the churches. We want to welcome everyone into our faith communities. We want to open the doors wide. We all say this, to bring everybody in, but it's not really happening. The churches are still pretty segregated for the most part. And I think the problem is there's some underlying judgment within our hearts, collectively and individually. So before we throw open the doors of the church, maybe we need to throw open the doors of our heart and do a little house cleaning in there. We need to be ready to truly accept and love people where they're at, especially the ones who are not like us, as we say. This isn't about tolerance. Tolerance just means I will, bite my lip and put up with your nonsense. I'm not talking about tolerance. I'm talking about moving beyond tolerance into embracing people, learning from people who are different from us. To be sure, my life has been enriched by people who are very different from myself. New people, different backgrounds, different races, different identities. They bring new and different gifts to the table. They bring different perspectives, maybe ones we hadn't even considered or conceived of before. And in an era where the national religion, the white evangelical Christianity, where that, is based essentially on preserving white privilege as a large voting bloc, preserving the blessings of the few at the expense of the many, those of us who are trying to actually live the gospel of Jesus Christ, not the gospel of white nationalism, we need to step it up. We need to do some housekeeping in our own hearts and get our shit together here. God does not have any favorites. We know that. We say it all the time. It's time to just start living it. There are lessons and blessings to be learned by engaging with people who are different. It's the only way we're going to get a handle on God's larger plan for all humanity. If you look at the scriptures, both the Hebrew scriptures and the Christian scriptures, there are a ton of stories of outsiders, of people who were definitely not like the majority, who nonetheless became prophetic witnesses to the all-inclusive love of God. If you think I'm just talking shit, go read the four Gospels again and look for the way outsiders are woven into the fabric of God's revelation. So today, let's take a look at our own biases and our own underlying racism, perhaps. The way we judge people who are different. This is not an easy thing to fix, but it can start right now with doing a little honest soul searching. Pray with me. Loving, mighty, all-inclusive God, we come into your divine, loving presence in this moment, mindful of the many times when we have chosen to judge and to distance ourselves from people who are very different from ourselves. Forgive us. Forgive us for not taking the gospel of Jesus seriously. Forgive us for wanting to preserve our status, our privilege. Help us today, with all those we meet, to choose to see the similarities instead of the differences, to choose to see other people as you see them, as bearers of your divine presence. And help us all to do a little more listening today and a little less judging. Amen. And now may the God of all-inclusive love, all-embracing love, hold you in the divine embrace today and all those you love with the blessing of our mighty God, the Creator, the Redeemer, and the Sanctifier. Amen.